I saw a film many years ago. I've even forgotten the name, I'm afraid. And it's Irish and set in Dublin. And to cut a long story short, the key person, the protagonist, was an elderly woman who had lived her faith, apparently faithfully, for many years. But right near the end of her life, a great tragedy had struck her. And she was consumed by grief and anger and confusion. And the scene that stayed in my mind was an empty church, a beautiful, huge Gothic church in the centre of Dublin. And the woman storming in the door at the back, walking up the aisle, thinking, what's happening next? Stepping into the sanctuary, walking past the altar, going to the tabernacle in the centre of the altar, the high altar, ripping away the curtains and banging again and again and again onto the door of the tabernacle, saying, "Where are you, God? Why won't you speak to me? Why are you so silent?" A shocking, frightening scene for a Catholic to see that happening, but just humanly, that the rawness and the agony of heart of this woman who had lived her faith for so long and so devoutly, and yet something had snapped, and it wasn't just the pain of the present. What you felt in that moment was if this woman had been carrying around within her faith for all her years the apparent absence of God. The absence of God. As Christians, we speak about a God who comes to be with us, don't we? One with us. This is what makes our faith so unique. We see his face. We hear his voice. Yet where is he? Where is this God of ours? If you were a soldier on a reconnaissance mission, or a scientist on a research project, and you tore into this chapel looking for Jesus, would you find him? A statue, a piece of wood, a candle, a mosaic on the back wall, a golden box in the corner with white wafers inside, apparently. If you had just the eyes of the scientist, the researcher, the investigator, would you find him? I'm not being irreverent here, and of course I know he is present here in faith in different ways. But the first thing about today's feast of the Ascension to notice is that it allows us to acknowledge the apparent absence of God. And we feel this sometimes as Christians, as that woman did so agonizingly. But we feel it in smaller ways when our faith is dry or life is difficult. And how much more is it felt by our friends and family and colleagues who have no faith, by those who suffer deeply, by those who are sick, alone, helpless and abandoned. This is the agony of God's absence, and we need sometimes to acknowledge that and feel it and let ourselves be disturbed and unsettled and even a little bit scandalized by it as Christians, instead of just dismissing it and saying, "Oh, God's with you, it doesn't matter, cheer up." This absence and this deeply felt agony is a permanent state for so many people. And that's part of the Feast of the Ascension. But it's not everything, of course. And we have to ask the question, why did Jesus go? Why did he leave the apostles and let himself be taken away? Well, first of all, let me say, maybe you haven't thought of this. He went for himself. If I can put it not too irreverently, there's a little bit of selfishness in Jesus, in the nicest, most human of ways. He was longing to be reunited with his Father. He was longing to go home for himself, to sit, as St. Paul says, at the right hand of God the Father. So the Ascension is a celebration, first of all, of his joy and the joy of heaven for him. And we are happy today for him. It's good to remember this, because sometimes we treat Christianity like an abstract plan of salvation, when really it's about a person, Jesus Christ, who came to earth out of love for us. Yes, that's the selflessness of Jesus, the self-emptying. But he returned to heaven partly out of love for the Father. He went for himself and for the Father. It's an absence, but it's a joyful absence. Imagine that you are in a war zone, huddled in your home with your aging parents, your children, your brothers and sisters, and somehow you manage to get them smuggled to safety over the border, even though you remain there. You're happy for them, aren't you? Of course you long to be reunited one day, but their absence in a strange way is the very thing that makes you happy. You know they are safe in a better place. And this is part of our joy today. Jesus, our brother, our friend, is safe. He's home. But there's much more. Language is important. You know the way in English we don't have many verbs, we just have one word, one verb, and then we stick things on the end. Yes? I'm going away, I'm going to, I'm going up, I'm going down, I'm going back, I'm going forward. Interesting languages have different words for these things. We just have go. Yeah? But it's important, the distinctions here. To think that today, instead of thinking that Jesus has gone away, to think that he's gone before us. He hasn't gone away. He's going before us. Do you see the nuance? If we were in a long procession, all of us, like we were on Palm Sunday, and the person at the front keeps walking onwards, you don't say they've gone away, do you? In a different direction. You say they're going before us, leading us, proceeding us. This is the Ascension. Jesus goes before us. He pushes open the door to heaven and steps through with us just behind in procession. That's a polite image. It's better to say that he batters down the very gates of heaven. He tears open the curtain that divides us and walks through. Our own humanity in Jesus enters into the heart of the Holy Trinity. The Ascension shows us where we are really going, what the meaning and destination of our life truly is, when so many other rival meanings fight for our attention. The Ascension shows us that it's possible to get there, because in his weakness and humanity, he has stepped through. The Ascension gives us the hope, the living hope, that we will follow him when the time is right. And the Ascension is about giving us time. Time to reach out to others. Think about the timing. Jesus could have taken the apostles straight to heaven with him, couldn't he? On the mountain. He's raised from the dead, he's spent his time with them over Eastertide, and he says, right now, I'm going and you're coming too. Would that have been better? Imagine if Jesus had snatched us away at the very moment of baptism. Imagine on the Easter Vigil in our baptismal pool here, with Jun and Gregory and Lily, Imagine that I poured the baptismal water over them and ping, they disappeared and popped up to heaven. Would that have been better? Well, it would have been better for them. I'm looking at them now. Yeah? It would have been better for them. It wouldn't have been better for us and for everyone else. What happens to the others? The period between the ascension and the end of the world is not an accident. It's a gift, an unexpected window of opportunity. And that's why Jesus links his going with his sending us out as disciples. You will be my witnesses. And at the end of Matthew's Gospel he says, go make disciples of all nations. We're given this time to proclaim the gospel to others, to invite others into the unity of Christ, so that when his body is lifted up at the end of time, they will be part of it as well as us. This is the meaning of this in-between time. Time for others, not just for us. I'll leave you with an image. When I was a teenager, we went on a school trip to Wales, walking in the Brecon Beacons. It's beautiful. Some of you have been there. And there was a big group of us late in the afternoon, and we saw this huge hill that we needed to get over to get down to the village afterwards. It seemed like a gentle rise, but the further up we got, the steeper and steeper it got. And we realised, really, when it was too late to turn back, that we were climbing up a cliff face in order to get over the top of the hill. I'm not making this up. This is firmly in my memory. So there we are. It's too late and too dangerous to go back down. And above us is a cliff and an overhang and safety. It was frightening. Finally, one of the boys found a way up. And he got hold of the top, hauled himself up, over, and disappeared. As you would. And then he leaned back over, crouching on the ground, with a big smile, reached down and offered his hand to the next person. I can't describe the sense of relief we all felt, even though we weren't there yet. Even though we weren't there yet. The relief was because we knew he was safe, and that we knew that we were safe, with the assurance of him being there, and that arm stretched out to help us. Keep this as an image of the ascension. Jesus is the one who has gone ahead of us and reached the top. His apparent disappearance makes our union with him stronger, not weaker. If we love him, we will be overjoyed for him. We'll also be deliriously happy for ourselves, who are clinging on to his outstretched arm. And we are desperate to use this time to get hold of others so that they can be pulled up too. Next weekend, on Pentecost Sunday, we will think about his presence in so many different ways through the Holy Spirit. For these next few days, let's think about his absence. And let me provoke you. The next time you feel God's absence, that emptiness in your heart, and even feel it very deeply and painfully, instead of being upset or angry, be grateful. Instead of thinking where he is not, here apparently, think about where he is in heaven. And think about what that really means for him and for you and for others. And realise that it's a source and a cause not of sadness but of great rejoicing.